When we get together to play tabletop fantasy role-playing games, there's an expectation that we're all kind of there for the same reasons. We're going to engage with the game the same way. We're all going to have the same kind of fun, and that's not at all true. Most people come together to play a game, and they have very different ways in which they see the game and the reason that they're trying to play it. I'm James, I'm DM, and yes, I still have a day job. Many Dungeon Masters have their lists of how they see different players, and those are all fine. It is perfectly reasonable to put your players in categories and say, this person really likes the kind of strategic action. This player is more of a thespian and they want to play the roles and they're really going to ham it up. This one really likes doing funny voices and wants kind of hijinks like a Monty Python kind of game. This player likes the puzzly aspects of the game. This player really likes to just get into the world building and figure out what's going on in the world. And most players kind of weave between them all as they're playing. It depends on the situation, depends on what they're trying to do. It depends on what mood they're in for that particular game or playing that character. It is useful to find out where they are so that you can figure out what engages them. The problem becomes that sometimes players go to such extremes with what engages them that they become toxic to one another because what they fundamentally want from the game is so far on the edges that it is hard to get these players to get along. A classic example is the power gamer versus the role player. The power gamer sits down at the game thinking of it as a thing to be solved. Their character sheet is a thing to be solved. Your adventure is a thing to be solved. The campaign is a thing to be solved. They often want a right answer. That's kind of their shtick through the entirety of who they are. I have a programmer friend and they think of things that way. They get very frustrated when they are playing social deduction games because all the information is not available to them, and they see that as a problem with the game. It makes it not fun for them. These kind of players that are in the full power gamer, the game is a set of rules that I can manipulate to try to find the optimal outcome, the optimal build, the optimal whatever it is. They don't mind that you sit down and say, this is the adventure that we're playing. And if you want to get into Skeg, the Fire Giant Emperor's castle, you must go through this front gate, and there is a way to solve this problem. Whether that's a riddle, a set of traps, or it's this very specific encounter, and they can start to kind of strategize. I don't think that's a word. Strategize around how they're going to place their characters, and they'll get a little bit tactical. They might even get leader bully in how they're going to do it because that's where they engage in the game. That's where they have a lot of fun. There is nothing necessarily wrong with liking that kind of stuff. There's lots of players that like to go online and they like to figure out how they can become the most thing. They might go watch a Treant Monk video or go to RPG Bot and look up, how can I become
ultimate fighter with an armor class that no dragon can touch. I will have all the hit points in the world, and I will dish out damage with my giant sword.
Whatever it is. When they want to make
ultimate fighter,
they will go online and they will find it. And as long as they can eventually get there, they are happy. You need to show them that that path is something that they can achieve and make sure that they do not achieve that until right before the climax of the campaign. If they achieve it early, they are not unlikely to get bored. They have solved their problem. The campaign is done. I have achieved
ultimate fighter.
I got no muscles. Once they have achieved that, they're good to go. I'm ready to move on to becoming ultimate mage or rogue or whatever it is because they're done. But if you get it done right before the campaign is over, they still want to show it off. They will still want to go up against Orcus or the Fire Giant Emperor Skeg from my campaign and just show off that look how awesome my character is. When Orcus goes to slice off their head and misses their armor class, by one point they will feel justified in all the time, energy, all the progression in getting there. There is another side of this side of the coin where the player is a little bit more of a scientist, where they want to make
Ultimate Fighter!
but they need to do it in a way that has not been done before. These players will often gravitate towards builds that are normally seen as dead ends. Something like, I want to make a Beastmaster Ranger, a famously underpowered character, and go, I bet I know a way to make this work. On the extreme ends, they can often see your attempts to help them solve it as invalidating what they've done. If I want to make a Beastmaster Ranger and I am having trouble doing it, and you homebrew for me a bow that whenever the bow hits a target, it allows the pet to make an opportunity attack or something on that target, thus balancing out the damage, but that's not in the core rules, they will see it as cheating. I didn't actually solve the problem within the rule set that Paizo or WotC or whoever your game of choice is set down. They don't even like third-party things. They want to solve it with the rules that the publisher gave, even though the publisher isn't really supporting it. They will feel cheapened if they help them out of it. But if you can go on and find something that is in the published rules, or they get you a published book and say, hey, look, I solved it, this is what it is, even though that's just as valid as any homebrew stuff that you would have come up with, that will solve it for them. It may sound like these people are approaching Dungeons and Dragons in a very video gamey way of looking at things, and yeah, I mean, they are. But Dungeons and Dragons is also the root of many of these video games. A lot of the reason for MMOs and those kinds of things was because people wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, developers wanted to play it, but they couldn't always get together to play with their friends, so they're creating these worlds that they could get into and go, I want to make the game that I always wanted to play, and thus are born things like Final Fantasy. World of Warcraft is a Dungeons and Dragons based game. That's where they made all that campaign. So is Diablo. I've got a role-playing game from Blizzard, that's Diablo. It came in the collector's edition of Diablo 2. If you play something like Baldur's Gate, obviously Dungeons and Dragons. If you play something like Fallout or Skyrim, they're very Dungeons and Dragons based. They're just more focused on figuring out how to solve the character and build one. And then the story is not an afterthought, but it's kind of this thing that's laid over the top and ties all these systems together rather than the flip, which is the story and then all the systems kind of fit within there. And that's more the realm of the role player. The role player often comes across as the good guy in both these arguments because many dungeon masters want more role players. Why won't my players role play more? Why won't they get into my world more? Why won't they focus on the story that we're crafting together instead of just becoming a collection of statistics and feats and magic items and no personality whatsoever? And to be fair, I've done that too. I'm always very enthusiastic when I get someone that is very role-play and wants to engage in the world as if they are actually a person living in it. But that doesn't mean that they can't become a problem in their own right. Many role players will see for lack of a better term, a right decision in front of their face and not choose it because they are very wrapped up in making their character individualistic, not within the world, but within the realm of all role plays. I don't want to do exactly what came before. I don't want to take the same spells as my master took before him, and my master took before him, all the way back to Elminster and Mordenkainen. I don't want to take Fireball. It's the same spell the last wizard took in the last campaign. Why can't I take something different, even though Fireball is the right answer? We're playing a game about going up against orcish and goblin hordes, and we're going to be fighting them on the open field between Silvermoon and Khazad-dû. Those aren't in the same universe, but not the point. Orcish hordes, open field, Fireball is the right answer. You're a 5th level wizard, Fireball is the right answer, pick up Fireball. But I don't want to pick up Fireball. Everybody else picked Fireball. So they will avoid that answer and go pick up something bizarro and weird over there from some weird source and go, I'm going to pick Summon Monster 3 Hi, editing James here. Yeah, that is the oddest spell that I could think of at the moment, and it's not even in 5th edition. Think like feign death. That's what I'm going to take, because summoning this one monster is going to be the same as Fireball. And our challenge as Dungeon Masters is to find ways to not allow them to hamstring the group's success. We want to allow them to pick those weird, bizarre spells. We want to find ways that they can pick Summon Monster and make it viable. And unlike the metagamers over here and the power gamers, they're probably okay with a certain amount of home brewing and breaking the rules, because you want to make those choices, and the rules really did not make Summon Monster the same as Fireball. So let's fix that. We're going to allow you to summon the same monster every time. You can name it, and you're always going to summon them, and that means that you can give them equipment and things, and they will buff up. But if you lose that summon monster, if it dies before the summon expires, you lose that monster, including all the equipment that goes back with them to their plane that they came from, where they turn into ash. I don't know what happens to them. And now they have to figure out when they're going to use them, and it becomes more like a Pikachu friend that they are playing along with. Or give them Fireball in the loot so that they don't have to make Sophie's choice. What I know I should take, because it is Dungeons and Dragons' right answer, and what I want to take for the flavor of my bonkers gnomish mage that really likes collecting all the weird spells that don't really make sense. You also want to make sure that these specific weird things that they're choosing show up in a way that will make the other members of the party feel like they did make a right choice. Let's take our power gamer again and say that they're playing a paladin and they want to find Holy Crusader. They want to find Cortana. Cortana is a sword. And find a way to make Cortana again. Okay, we've broken up Cortana into several parts. Let's say that we have the hilt, the crossguard, and the blade. And they don't know where all those pieces are. The only thing they've got is the hilt. And they need to find it. So you can use locate object from your diviner mage over here that took all these locate objects, locate creature spells, and go, can I think of Cortana, an AI created sword? She's AI in Halo, but sword in the myths. To find this intelligent item and treat it as a creature and try to go locate that. Sure, yeah, it's got an intelligence, so you can treat it as a creature, and that way you can figure out where that was, because the power gamer was over here trying to find all the libraries and do research and go find ancient sages. But you're going, I really want this person to feel like they're tied into that story and that these players are going to get along. Allow them to be the one that solves their problem, and that will tie them closer together. And this person, your power gamer, will feel like that person took the right spell for the situation. If you're lucky, he's not going to be a jerk, because that's also possible too. They will just be caustic. So why do they get caustic at each other? Why do they start snapping at each other and pulling each other apart and just becoming rude and digging too greedily and too deeply to either ends of their spectrum and unleashing the Balrog that's going to destroy your table? Players don't come to the game with exactly the same understanding, exactly the same motivations for playing this stuff. They come with very different reasons. We are all individuals and we all overlap in certain ways and we see things in similar ways, but they are not usually perfectly aligned in how they are. They're not even this close. They're often like that. Hopefully they're not this. If you are the poor dungeon master that has got this, then you're going to have to do some fancy footwork to get them to go along. And often that ends up with talking to your players. You're going to have to sit down with both of them and go, look, we are playing a fantasy action world. And that means that your players are aware that they're going into dungeons to fight dragons and that survival is of the utmost importance to them. If you want to get along and see the end of your character's story arc, you're going to have to pick some spells that are the right spells for the occasion. And I'm going to give you those spells to some degree. I'll make sure that they're in the loot when I roll a magic scroll and you have not picked haste. I will make sure that haste is available to you. You can pick some weird bonker spells, but you're going to have to get along with the idea that your character wants to live. Don't they? You want to see the end. Sometimes you're going to have to take haste as your prepared spell. You over there, power gamer, you can't go full Hercules over here. You can't go to strength 26, and I am not going to give you the armor of the gods that makes your character invulnerable. I can't do that, because every time you do that, in order to make sure that your character's statistics that you have built into this tower of awesomeness are challenged and that you fully feel the awesomeness of your tower, I have to up the ante of the monsters to bring them up to your level. Otherwise, you're not going to feel challenged. You're going to start just stormtroopering through this whole thing, at which point you're done, and we still got 10 levels of adventure to wrap up the story. So I can't do that. You can go to some degrees, and you can go to an 18 or a 20 strength or whatever it is that you decided the limit is, but we've got to keep it around there. So no, I can't give to you a belt of storm giant strength. How about ogre or hill giant? We can go that far because you're going to outclass this player. And every time you make a choice that goes that far, this player has to go further into a realm that they are not comfortable with, that they don't enjoy playing. That you have a 26 strength, and that means that for my wizard to feel like they're on pair, I need a 26 intelligence. And I don't want to add more intelligence to my wizard. I was at a 20, and I felt comfortable there. Can't I put some points in, I don't know, strength so that I can carry a little bit more? I don't want to play the same sickly wizard that everybody plays. I want to play a wizard that is fairly fit. They just happen to like spells. You keep pushing this that far, I won't be able to make this character that I'm dreaming of. How do we balance that? And the difference is, don't go to the extremes. And as dungeon masters, it is our job to go, you got to come in a little bit so that you're close enough that I can form the bridge between both of you to allow you to both enjoy the games your way. If you made it this far in the video, please consider a like and a subscribe. I appreciate that very much. And until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember, you're a player too. Try to have some fun.